This is Ultimate Soccer with Soccer Steve.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Ultimate Soccer Show. Today, we're going to be talking to Ryan Anderson, TFC Midwest podcast. I've been watching Ryan's show for quite some time, let me tell you. And we know each other from quite some time too. But if you want another taster of soccer, especially if you're in the USA, then check out Ryan Anderson, TFC Midwest podcast. The guy knows his stuff, I'm telling you now. So let's welcome Ryan in. Ryan, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. Can't wait for the World Cup to start. It's going to be a rocking time, a busy time, but it's going to be a fun one. Can't wait.
Now, just before we get into this, what's the main feel for American fans down there? Are they really eagerly waiting to get to this World Cup? Is there any trepidation, or are they thinking that this is going to be a bad World Cup, a good World Cup? Give me your lowdown from the USA fans. What are they feeling?
I would say they feel very trepidatious because the Greg Berhalter style, they just had a bad window in September against Japan and Saudi Arabia, lost to Japan, drew Saudi Arabia. They haven't been playing well. They haven't been playing very well. And they're worried that the Greg Berhalter style will push them to an early exit because I think U.S. fans are expecting with the talent a quarterfinal round of 16 berth. But with what Berhalter's doing, I think they're just really worried about Berhalter, the way he runs the team, the style, because the U.S. has the talent, but the coaching just isn't there. But the good thing for the U.S. is they're in a group that has another coach pretty similar to Berhalter, where the talent's there, but the coaching isn't. And Wales and Iran, two good teams, but I still think U.S. has enough talent to brute force those games. So I think they do get out of the group. I think England's more likely to be the ones who fail out of that group, frankly. I think U.S. has more talent there, and I think there's going to be upsets. There always is. So I could see why U.S. fans are trepidatious, and I would be too. But I could totally see why they could be trepidatious, but I think the USA are in for an okay time at the World Cup.
It's an interesting group, you know, because you've got USA ranked at 16, Iran ranked 20, Wales ranked 19, and England ranked 5. Both of the, or I should say all three of those teams before England are ranked very closely. But let's stay with the English cause moving forward. You mentioned that the coaching angle. I absolutely agree that they do not have a winning coach. When you look back in time, the World Cup gone through a failed 2018 semi-final. Also, recently, a failed 2020 final against Italy, losing that on penalty kicks. It really does show that the leadership of the English team is rock bottom. What are your thoughts?
I think it's gotten even worse since that Euro final under Southgate. He has the talent. He doesn't want to use it. He wants to use his favorite players. And it just seems like England, they had a scoring drought from like May on until they played Germany in the Nations League. It just shows you the talent don't believe in Southgate. The fans don't believe in Southgate. I don't even think Southgate believes in himself, frankly.
Yes.
So when it comes to England, Southgate's a fraud. We've known this for years, but he somehow luckily got his way to a semifinal and a final in the last two major tournaments. But I just don't see him doing it again.
Bravo.
I think England are going to crash out. I just don't see them having a good World Cup. This just seems like the time that England, it all falls apart, like it sort of normally does for them over history. But I think this is the time it falls apart for Southgate. Now, what they do next after, they could deal with that. And nobody really knows, frankly. So that's what I see with England.
If you're talking about history with the English national team, let me tell you, everybody, England has won one trophy in history. One trophy. They gave the world the game, and they've only won one trophy. That trophy was 1966, the World Cup, a 4-2 victory over Germany in the final at Wembley. It has been contested to this day by Germans and to many people around the world, but they've won nothing since. And actually, the coach who coaches England right now, Gareth Southgate, was the man that missed a penalty in 1996 in a semi-final in the Euros against Germany that put England out of the competition. Ironically, he's the coach where England lose to Italy in the final 2020 final on penalties as well. I say a winning coach breeds a winning team, breeds a winning mentality. Your thoughts on that one?
I agree with that. That's why I think the U.S. are in a better spot, because Southgate is a bottler.
Mm-hmm.
to Greg Berhalter's credit, he's won trophies.
Yes.
It may not have been because of him, but he has been a winning coach. Southgate, on the other hand, he's just a serial bottler. He's got them far, but not far enough. Even lost the third place match to Belgium in 2018. So it shows to me that he could get them there. He has. I don't know if he can now, but he has gotten them to the close to the promised land, and then they fail. So he's not a winning coach. And I agree. If you're a winning coach, your team believes in you, the country believes in you, or the fans believe in you, whether it's a club or country. And you have to figure out how to make that team win. But that team will run through a wall for you if you're a winning coach.
Definitely.
If you're a losing coach, they got to figure out how to do it themselves and feel like they're playing hero ball. And that's the problem with England. It's just that they can't figure out how to play hero ball with the players that are less talented but Gareth's favorites.
Absolutely.
Like Harry Maguire, but that's exactly what it is the favorites aren't as talented as some of the players they could easily play, like James Ward-Prowse, one of the best free kick takers in the world. He should be playing. He should be starting for England, frankly. And the fact he isn't is just crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, looking at the 3 games in the group, and I'll ask you this first of all, who do you see the top 2 teams in Group B? Who do you see moving through?
I see, frankly, USA and Wales.
Interesting. And the 3 games, you got Wales on the 21st of November, you got England on the 25th, and you got Iran on November 29th. How many points do you see the USA grabbing from those 3 massive games?
I say they beat Iran, they draw England, because I feel like both teams, that's going to be a tough game for the USA, but both teams don't have that killer instinct. And I say they beat Wales pretty closely, so that's 7 points.
7 points. I'll tell you what, I think I agree with you, absolutely. I am looking personally, before we move to the next group, I'm looking personally for the USA to make a statement in the World Cup in Group B. I agree exactly with everything you've said with England. Wales is a second place team with me if they can hit the ground running, and Iran is a second question too, but I absolutely agree that the USA is there for purpose, and England better beware. Now, moving to the next group, we're talking about Canada, Croatia, Belgium, and Morocco. I know you're a friend of Canada. Give me your feel on that group.
For me, I think this is a group Canada could succeed in. I really do. I think they have the talent to finish second in this group or even first. I think it's going to be hard to pip Croatia, but I think Belgium is right there for the taking, and I think Morocco is there as well. I think Croatia is honestly the best team in the group, but I think Canada is slightly better than Belgium. And Morocco, I think Canada is definitely better than, even though they've gotten Ziyech and some of their better players back as they hired the new coach they have. But for me, I think Canada could easily make a statement here. I think they're a very good team. I think John Herdman has them running through walls for him. Speaking of winning coaches, John Herdman has made Canada an amazing team, an amazing program on both sides of the program, the women and the men. John Herdman has changed Canada soccer for the better, and it's going to be sad when he leaves. And I don't know if it'll be as good. This may be the peak, but John Herdman is a man who has his players run through walls for him. And I think that's why Canada is going to get through the group, because they can perform. They have great players who could help them perform. They have some X factors that if they perform their best, such as Eustachio and Davies and David and Larin, if they play their best, Canada gets out of the group.
It's going to be a tough one. I mean, most people up here in Canada are feeling that, we have no chance. I say those people really don't know the game. There's a lot of fans up here getting slowly excited about the World Cup, but they're not your soccer fans with the great knowledge like you and I and many more. But the feeling is that they're really in too deep. And I can agree with the Belgium and the Croatia angle, but at one stage of World Cups, there is such a thing as upsets. And I think this group could be the group with the upsets. I think that a lot of people are not paying too much respect to Morocco, who are 22nd in the world. Let's face it, Belgium's second in the world, Croatia's 12th, and Canada's 41. You have to say Morocco's not being given too much respect. That may well be to the advantages of Morocco. Come in quietly, take someone out nicely, move through. It's a dark horse is what I'm saying with Morocco. But I do agree, Canada has a very good chance. I'm thinking myself, it's Belgium and Croatia's top 2 places to lose in this group. Is it the group of death? What do you think?
I think the group of death is the one that has Costa Rica with Japan, Germany, and Spain, which we'll get to. I think that's the true group of death. But Group F has a shout. I think it has a shout. But of course, I believe Canada has a very good chance to get through. So I can't really say it's the group of death. But hey, maybe that's what makes a group of death. Maybe that's some way people see it. But I see it as a group where you have two favorites, but you have two teams that could easily pip the favorites.
Yes.
And it could end up where the favorites are the two on the bottom and the people who are the underdogs end up going through. And I don't think Group F is exactly like that. I think Canada could easily pip Belgium or Croatia, but I still think one of those two are going to finish second or first.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting group. And I mean, you have to speculate on this one like other groups as well. But I hope and pray Canada gets through. I really do. I'd love to see them get to the round of 16. I mean, for me, that would be maybe a bridge too far, if I'm honest, but I'm certainly hopeful that that can be the way it pans out. Let's face it, Canada's last World Cup in '86, 3 games, no goals, no wins, no nada. Even if they score 1 goal at this World Cup, it will be what you would say writing history for Canada. The USA has been in so many World Cups, and let's face it, massive respect for the USA. That's what I have. Those that don't will find out. And I think the same applies with Canada, is that over a short term, they've built themselves into a real tidy team with a decent squad, but it's that winning manager that you pointed out, Johnny Herdman, that may well make the difference. I'm hopeful, but it's going to be a long road. Now, one final question before we move on. England are ranked 5, France 4, Argentina 3, Belgium 2, Brazil 1. Looking at your group, do you really think England is ranked 5 in the world correctly?
No.
That's a beautiful answer. That's a beautiful answer because
if they had a winning manager, I would say they're top 5 in the world, but they don't have that winning manager. The talent just doesn't know how to win with Southgate. They're not top 5.
Absolutely. And rounding out the top 10 that are behind England, which I find absolutely unbelievable, just to keep it nice. You got Italy in 6, Spain in 7, Portugal 9, Denmark 10, and Germany in 11. All those teams are below the English national team. Like you say, I don't believe it for a second. But moving along, Group C, Mexico, our lovely fellas and girls to the south of Canada and the USA. Mexico ranked 13, Argentina ranked 3rd, 26 is Poland, and 51st is Saudi Arabia. How do you feel the Mexicans are going to fare in Group C?
The thing about Mexico's performance under Tata Martino is what really scares me with this group. Lewandowski has to have one of his signature tournaments, and it's bound to happen. Lewandowski, close to being a Ballon d'Or player over the past 2 years. He's not really performed on the international stage in his career, but there's bound to be a time where he has that tournament that is his signature tournament. And I think here you have a group where he could easily make this his signature tournament. Argentina, under Lionel Messi, they have a reason to play, and they've been playing very well over the past 2 years. And I think Argentina finishes top. But I have a feeling Poland finishes second. The way Mexico's been playing and the team that Mexico takes and Tata Martino, if they had a different manager, like if Juan Carlos Osorio was still there, I think they may finish second.
Oh, yeah.
Tata's not a great manager. He hasn't been good since Atlanta. He wasn't good before Atlanta, and he hasn't been good besides 2019 since Atlanta. So I just don't see Mexico honestly getting out of that group. I think Lewandowski carries Poland to second. Mexico may finish a point lower, and then Saudi Arabia, they're going to be the dead rubber of the group.
Yeah, quite possibly. I think if Mexico gets through, they need to bring something that team really had in abundance throughout the 80s and the 90s, and it was more of the physical edge. You can think of Uruguay back in the day with, and I'm not talking about biting people like Suarez, but I'm just talking about getting in there with a nice hard game and keeping it physical. Mexico's not physical enough for my money. They're like the Arsenal of the Premier League. Yeah, I know Arsenal's on top of the league for now. Will that last? But Mexico used to be a lot more physical, and I think that physical edge is something that they need to bring for this World Cup, as well as the great skill they have, if they have any chance of moving through.
Yeah, I don't see Mexico. They haven't really been that physical like they used to be. Even in the early 2000s and 2010s, they were still a physical, tough team that wouldn't let you take, they wouldn't take no for an answer, but they
Right.
definitely wouldn't let you just step to them and make them look bad. Now, I don't see the toughness. I just don't see the toughness. They have the skill, but the toughness is just going away. And maybe that's just the way the game is now, where it's just getting less and less tough, which, I
Right.
mean, that's been a overall, I think, situation. I think the teams that are still have toughness are the better teams nowadays.
Yes.
Because as Canada showed, they have toughness out the wazoo. And that's why they finished first in CONCACAF, because they have toughness. They're not going to let you just step to them and run their show. They're going to run your show, whether it's home or away. Mexico used to be like that. The USA used to be like that.
Yes.
Neither of them really are anymore.
So
And I think the way to success in CONCACAF is to be tough. If you want to succeed out of CONCACAF, in CONCACAF, you got to be tough. And I just don't see Mexico like that anymore.
So basically, Group C, you're talking Argentina quite possibly finishing first, what I'm hearing from you, and Poland second.
Yeah. Yes.
Good bets, good bets. I mean, I hope for CONCACAF that Mexico can squeeze in there, but I agree with what you say. I absolutely agree. And I think it's going to be tough for Mexico to make second spot, but I'd love to see Mexico get into the round of 16. I think once you get into the knockout round, anything's possible. And those 3 games that we have in the group, it kind of stifles the play and it makes the play more deliberate. But in a one-off, I think Mexico will surprise a few teams. Yeah, absolutely. Now, moving across, we're looking now to the next group, which is Costa Rica, Spain, Germany, and Japan. Costa Rica 31st, Spain 7th in the world, Germany 11, and Japan 24. Take me through that one, Ryan. What are you thinking?
Costa Rica is a big underdog here, but the way they've been playing under Luis Fernando Suarez, the manager, they've been playing very well. This is their last ride with some of their bigger players, but they have some new players that are very interesting. Benet, who just went to Sunderland.
Yes.
And Contreras, 2 very good players. Keylor Navas is still at the top of his game and should get more respect than he ever has, but people don't like respecting Keylor Navas for some reason. I think Costa Rica could easily shock some people in this group. I think Spain is the best team in the group, but Germany, they haven't been great recently under Hansi Flick over the past couple of windows. They started off really hot, but it's kind of like 2019 Mexico and current Mexico.
Yes.
Germany started hot under Flick, and I thought that was the answer, but they're starting to be more just stagnant. They're stagnating, Germany. They're better than they were under Love, under Flick still. But the question is can Germany ward off Costa Rica and Japan? Because I think both Costa Rica and Japan could give a shock, but Costa Rica is a team that I'm very interested in watching at the World Cup. I'm very interested in watching because, one, they're CONCACAF. Yeah. I also, outside of CONCACAF, also root for Japan for reasons. But for me, they're both interesting teams, but Costa Rica just seems like a team who's poised to make a somewhat of a very valiant run. Maybe not out of the group, but they will play very valiantly and show that they still have heart. They will not just be a toy to play against. They will have some heart. They will be valiant. They could surprise anybody in that group.
Which 2 teams do you see getting out? Is it the case of Germany and Spain do get out? Or do you see, like you were saying earlier, that this possibly is the group of death?
I think it possibly is the group of death, but in the end, I think Spain and Japan. I think there's enough upsets to where Japan could back into second place because, again, I want to see Japan do good as well. I think Costa Rica kind of helps them, sort of like the little brother type situation. It could go either way there, but I think Germany finishes third and Japan's the more likely to finish second and Spain finishes first.
So our neighbors down there in Costa Rica, Costa Ricans, you see it's a bridge too far for Costa Rica this time around?
Yes, I think it's a little bit of a bridge too far. They'll have heart. They'll fight their hearts out, but they'll help upset maybe, or at least get an upset draw, I guess in their case would be. But it'll definitely have the favorites on the back foot. but I think it's a bridge just a bit too far for Costa Rica.
So basically, USA gets out of the group. You're saying Canada gets out of the group, Mexico probably not, and Costa Rica probably not, correct?
That's what I'm saying, yes.
Okay, people, take note that Ryan Anderson's Ultimate Soccer Show, we put together what we think is the view to the future for all four CONCACAF teams. I got one more interesting question to close this one down, though, Ryan. Qatar has been playing club teams and international teams, more so club teams, and not always winning, if you know what I mean. Do you think it's fair that FIFA has been ranking Qatar's games as well as their international games when they've played club teams? Because the point I'm going to make is this. Qatar is ranked 50th in the world. That's an absolute inflated number, like it was for South Africa for the South African World Cup. My question is this. If not 50th in the world, where would you place Qatar in the FIFA rankings?
Definitely not 50th. I don't think they're that good. Now, you could say during the Gold Cup, they were competing with CONCACAF at a pretty good level, but since then, they've sort of stagnated. I would say maybe 70th, around like in the 70s, low 60s, high 70s, because I just don't see them as 50th. I think Canada is a far better team than them, and Canada's way underrated, but that's because of their history before Herdman from all those years, and that's why they're 41st. They should be higher, but it's all the results before Herdman during the Floro and Zambrano years that hold them down.
Yep.
But Canada's miles better than Qatar, and Qatar is definitely not 50th. So I'd say they're the low 60s, high 70s, frankly.
And on the recent play, Canada beat Qatar recently there in Austria 2-0. And you got to say, they totally dominated the game, Canada did.
Yes.
Qatar really looked like, if we were going to look at this in grades, if you were to say Canada was a B grade team, then Qatar looked like a C to a D. That's the way I would place them. They were not close. They didn't have the ethic in defending, midfield, or forward moves. They really weren't disciplined enough in their team ethic completely. And I think that coming to the World Cup, I'd hate to see this, but I think Qatar's World Cup numbers may well probably be the worst hosting World Cup numbers we ever see in history. And moving forward, I think it might be tough to beat that because they have very little on the defense, very little on the midfield, and hardly anything on the offense to really comprise results at what one would say is the biggest soccer competition in the world.
Yes. Qatar, for me, was like a D- team in that friendly. I thought Canada could have easily scored more goals. I think they kind of took it a bit easy after they scored that second early. I'm like, yeah. I thought they took it a bit easy. They could have easily made it 5 or 6, I thought, personally. Yeah. And they should have, but it also is kind of like that Uruguay game. I think they wanted to save something for that Uruguay game a couple of days later. And I think that's why they sort of like went down a gear, frankly. If you want to use a racing term, a F1 term, you could do that. But speaking about that Uruguay game, I actually thought that was a pretty quality loss.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's kind of like college football. I'm going to make this comparison. It's like if you're a good team, but you lose to Alabama, but it's like within like 6 points, 3 or 6 points. It's a quality loss. You're playing a really good team that teaches you something about what the mettle of your team really is. And Canada could have easily scored a goal or two against Uruguay. I thought they had a really good offensive play, but Uruguay basically had a zone defense that was very interesting the way they played, like getting back and parking the bus when Canada had the ball. And I think that's really what stifled Canada, but they had good offensive movement, good forward movement. And I thought Canada showed out pretty well against Uruguay, which is why I'm not so worried about their group, because I thought sometimes it's better to lose those friendlies and learn something from it in a quality loss than win it and not learn anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Ryan, it's been an absolute blast. Viewers to the Ultimate Soccer Show and viewers to TFC Midwest Podcast, just know this. I am going to be talking more with Ryan. Ryan is going to be talking more with Steve. We're going to follow through the World Cup, and I hope the USA gets out of the group, as well as Canada. And I know it's going to be tough for Mexico and Costa Rica, but we want all our CONCACAF teams into the round of 16, upsetting the whole world. I'll be talking to you soon, my friend. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. Can't wait to see you again.
The Ultimate Soccer Show. Join me. Listen. You'll love it. Everybody does.